We're here tonight to reminisce about a lovable, athletic, roguish young man who discovered a calling to the priesthood, was sent to a foreign land that would become his permanent home, and ended up having such a profound impact on the people and important causes that he has now been memorialized with a statue. Laurence E. Higgins was born in 1928 in Merifelt, Northern Ireland. He was the second oldest of 8 children. His family was prominent, but it was his parents' strong Catholic faith, their concern for the poor, and their personal example that gave Laurence and his siblings a solid foundation for life. Laurence's upbringing deeply shaped his values. The importance of La Familia would later become a common theme in his preaching, and he remained very close to his family throughout his life.
Uncle Laurence never forgot his Irish roots and came back home frequently for family occasions, both happy and sad. We always looked forward to his visits and the reunion of the Higgins clan. In the midst of the family parties, there was always debates and song, and there was Uncle Laurence in the middle of everything, always the entertainer.
But Laurence was surely not a saint in his adolescent years. He was dismissed from school because playing sports far outweighed academics on his priority scale. He was a star on championship teams, talented enough to become a professional.
When he was in a boarding high school, his local team, Merifelt, were in the county final. But all of the students had gone back to their high schools and weren't allowed to go out. So it so happened that a friend of Monsignor Higgins called the president of the college and told him that Monsignor's grandmother was quite ill and would she please release the 3 boys for the weekend to care for their grandmother. And he went out and played a starring role with his team, and they won. But unfortunately for him, they found out and there were some repercussions to what happened.
Fortunately, his father convinced Laurence that he needed to buckle down, that sports fame is fleeting. He began studies to pursue a medical career, but soon recognized that he was meant for something else. Laurence became Father Higgins when he was ordained a Catholic priest in 1953. Soon thereafter, he was sent to the United States and assigned to the Diocese of St. Augustine, which at that time encompassed most of Florida. He worked in Miami for nearly 5 years as a teacher and associate pastor in 3 parishes. He quickly adapted to his new environment and made impressions with students and parishioners with his endearing style.
And all these priests came over from Ireland, and we just opened a school. That was the first year they opened. And I guess they couldn't get enough of teachers, so Monsignor Higgins was one of our teachers, and so I happened to help teach him how to speak English.
He just came over from Ireland. He was an all-Irish football player. To put it all in one phrase for me, Father Higgins was an Irish celebrity that became a priest.
It was an adventure, you know. I was 24 at the time. Loved the movies. I used to go as often as possible and saw all the movie stars, knew them by heart. As my mother said, if I knew my religion as well as I knew football players and movie stars, I'd be a genius or a saint. So one or the other. I think I'm neither.
In 1958, he was transferred to the mission territory of Tampa. His new boss, Archbishop Joseph Hurley, assigned young Higgins 20 acres of cow pasture at the corner of Hillsborough and Himes Avenues, and a mandate to build a parish. Within 2 years, he was able to open the provisional church facility, as well as St. Lawrence School.
We started off very small, and then from that we started to build more and more, and eventually it ended up with 3 parishes. St. Lawrence's was one of them, and then the next one was Epiphany to the east, and to the west was Incarnation, and then eventually the Archbishop asked me to start a parish to the north, which became St. Paul's. So as a young man, I was only 28, and it was a great opportunity.
The parish grew to over 2,000 families, and finances enabled a permanent church to be constructed in 1981. Then, in 1994, the multi-purpose center, named Higgins Hall, opened as one of Tampa's premier event venues. Early on, Father Higgins had added parish administrator Polly Murray to his team, enabling this rapid progress. He had the vision. She made it happen.
She never wanted any credit for anything she did, but she was the one who built Higgins Hall. She worked with all the people. She expected perfection, and I owe a lot to her. I think that she is the person who influenced me the most in my work.
Father Higgins was developing a real talent for attracting new members to his flock, finding volunteers, and the support for the necessities of building a parish.
He did have a unique ability to discern people's talents. So he never asked everyone for everything all the time. He would go to individuals or groups of individuals selectively. His discernment would tell him what you could do and what you could deliver. So when he asked you for something, you knew that he knew that you could do it. Made it very hard to say no.
He was relentless. He didn't just go kind of make a soft sell. He'd go in there, and if he felt passionately about something, he'd convince you why you needed to do it, not why you should do it. And he made it your idea. He was very good at that. So in addition to everything else, he was a tremendous salesman.
People not only thought of him as their priest, but as their friend. And he had several people who considered him their best friend. And if you talk to those people who you say that there were several best friends, they'll come up to you and say, yeah, but I was his best friend.
Even as he dealt with the demands of an expanding St. Laurence, Father Higgins continued to be pulled into other assignments. In the early 70s, he guided St. Peter Claver, a predominantly African-American parish near Ybor City.
He was pastor there for 2 years. He actually had St. Laurence and he had St. Peter Claver. He ran both of them. And he was dedicated to try to educate these kids. He was the one that, his attitude was, I'd say, Father, I don't know how we're going to do it. He says, don't worry, the money will come. And he was always right. He was always right.
In 1983, Pope John Paul II gave Laurence the title Monsignor Prelate of Honor, not only in recognition of his service to the Church, but also for who he was as a priest.
He brought my husband into the Catholic Church, so he meant a lot to us. It was wonderful when you really could just sit and relax and talk to him. It was beautiful. He came to my house to bless my house and sat on my swing and just said, I could do this all day. I had never seen that side of him before, that he was relaxing.
I would stand in the back in the sacristy when I was a young priest, because I was assigned there in 1983. And I would listen in the back, and he would deliver short homilies that had the cadence of a coach. And he would come to the conclusion, most of the time, with a, let's do it. And you felt like the huddle just broke, and you were supposed to run out and make the mission happen.
Impressive as his contributions were within the Catholic Church, it was his work outside that made him a Tampa Bay institution. He served on chambers of commerce, international trade delegations, Super Bowl and Outback Bowl host committees, and countless boards of directors. As chaplain of the Buccaneers, he was able to inspire players and coaches the day of Super Bowl 37.
He saved his best for the most for the most important one. He used to always reference, you run the race, and you run the race not to compete, you run the race to win. And here we are, boys, and we're going to win, and we're going to fight. And it turned into like, you felt like you were listening to Newt Rockney.
Monsignor Higgins dedicated every minute he could to helping the disadvantaged. He truly walked the walk of Jesus Christ.
I think that the greatness of any community is how we take care of those in need, be it mental, be it physical, be it any way. It's how we take care of those less fortunate than ourselves.
Monsignor Higgins was a leader. I think everybody in town thought that he could have been Pope someday. He was that kind of person. He knew the rich, he knew the poor. He loved his parish, he loved St. Laurence from day one. And so the things that he did for our community, I don't know that we'll ever have enough time to thank him for.
Monsignor Higgins retired as the pastor of St. Laurence in 2007, but he was far from finished making a difference. Even in his last days, he was driven to help the poor, to find ways to give them a chance with vehicles such as Cristo Tampa High School.
I said, I really would love your assistance because I think we have a project, Cristo Tampa High School, a high school for the underserved here in Tampa that you and only you could really put your voice behind that would really be able to help us. So he heard my story, he listened, and he said, well, I've been waiting for a guy like you to come along.
Clearly, his tangible accomplishments are numerous, but it was the way he lifted people that made him special to thousands. Catholics, yes, but many more who were not.
One of the reasons I admire the man so much, he never once questioned my religion. He didn't care whether you were black, white, Jewish. The Christian didn't make any difference to him.
Even to the end, his faith, lived out in service to others, remained inspiring to those who knew him.
He told me, he says, Joe, we got a lot to do, man. We got a lot to do. So he was still, 2 weeks before he's going to pass away, thinking in his mind things that he still wanted to accomplish that never got done.
New generations will be introduced to Laurence Higgins in many ways when they come to St. Lawrence Parish, drive down Monsignor Higgins Avenue, or attend an event at Higgins Hall. But for those of us blessed to have known him, the memory of that charismatic smiling face and distinctive laugh, the principles he stood for, the lessons he taught us, his passion for service to those in need, will all be sculpted in our hearts forever.